Hiya! Okay, now here's the first in a series of shorter videos um, in which we talk about rubrics and learning aims. So here is the first in the series. This is, basically a walkthrough of the different types of rubrics that are out there. So you can have what's called a holistic rubric, an analytic rubric, and there are also single point rubrics. I think for now, what we'll do is just take a look at the difference between a holistic and an analytic rubric. That's really what you need to know. And this website is Cult of Pedagogy. It's a great website by this woman, Jennifer Gonzalez, who is a teacher in the US. Now, what's the basic difference? Well, if we talk about rubrics for a few minutes, what we're going to do here is describe two frequently used kinds of rubrics, holistic and analytic. And let's explore pros and cons and see what the differences are. A holistic rubric is the most general kind. It lists 3 to 5 levels of performance, along with a broad description of the characteristics that define each level. So the levels can be labeled with numbers such as 1 through 4, letters such as A through F, or words such as beginning through exemplary. What each level is called isn't what makes the rubric holistic. It's the way the characteristics are all lumped together. Okay, suppose you're an unusually demanding person. You want your loved ones to know what you expect if they should ever make you breakfast in bed, so you give them this holistic rubric. And what you see here is it's scored, I don't know why that's popping up, 1 through 4, and each level has a description. Okay. 1. Most of the food is cooked poorly, the presentation is sloppy or unclean, and the recipient is uncomfortable most of the time. A 2. Some food is cooked poorly, some aspects of presentation are sloppy or unclean, or the recipient is uncomfortable at times. 3. In assessing breakfast in bed, food is cooked correctly, the meal is presented in a clean and well-organized manner, and the recipient is kept comfortable throughout the meal. And then the highest level in this rubric about breakfast in bed. All food is perfectly cooked, presentation surpasses expectations, and recipient is kept exceptionally comfortable throughout the meal. A holistic rubric. Now, what we see here is the main advantage is that this is easy on the teacher in the short run anyway. It takes less time to create a holistic rubric, and grading goes more quickly. So you just look over an assignment and you give one holistic score to the whole thing. The main disadvantage of a holistic rubric is that it doesn't provide targeted feedback to students. So they're unlikely to learn much from, well, at least from the rubric, right? So this often leads the student to approach the teacher and ask, well, why did you give me a 2? And the teacher will have to explain, why the person got a 2. Okay. Again, a holistic rubric. Now, what we see here is what's called an analytic rubric. This breaks down the characteristics of an assignment into parts, allowing the scorer to itemize and define exactly what aspects are strong and which ones need improvement. So, for the breakfast in bed example, an analytic rubric would look like this. Oh, you see the difference. Here, it's divided into different categories: food, presentation, and comfort. They are included up here. So, for example, you see food, presentation, comfort, at the different levels, but here it's broken down into more detail. Okay. And you still see that there are points, 1 for beginning all the way up to 4 for exemplary or excellent. So in this case, you give a separate score for each category. So the person might get a 3 on presentation, but a 2 on food, and just a 1 on comfort. And you can highlight specific phrases like, the recipient is crowded during the meal, to indicate exactly what went wrong. This is where we see the main advantage of the analytic rubric. It gives students a clearer picture of why they got the score they got. It's also good for the teacher because it gives him or her the ability to justify a score on paper without having to explain everything in a later conversation. Now, analytic rubrics have 2 significant disadvantages, however. 1, creating them takes a lot of time. So writing up descriptors, you have to write then all these different categories explaining, is enough of a challenge on its own. But you have to define all the ways the work could go wrong, all the ways it could exceed expectations. This is a big, big task. And once all that work is done, students won't necessarily read the whole thing. So a lot of times, they just, they don't read the whole rubric. I tend to use analytic rubrics. At the Hogeschool, I think in general, we use analytic rubrics. I'll show you some examples in the next video. But so far, so good. Are you clear? The difference between a holistic rubric and an analytic rubric. Thanks for watching.